Hello, everybody. Happy Monday afternoon. Hope yours is going well. We've got an NFL video to get to today, but first I want to give a shout out to all my subscribers and give a special tip of the cap to all the channel members, especially new or returning channel member Y2KHA and new elite channel member What's His Nuts. He joins Brendon, Mikel, Hasher for MVP, VGK Tiger 75. Ryguy, Salacious, Crumb, Brendan Nelson's Haircut, TlVlO, ItsHoof, and the Reno. All right, guys, today we're going to be doing things a little differently than we usually do. I usually keep my videos to Seahawks centric only outside of major things, but I thought it would be fun to do a at least partial mock draft this year. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do round one today. We're going to do a full 32 pick mock draft of the first round of the 2021 draft. And with each passing Monday between now and the draft, we're going to expand by an extra round. So we'll go through 4 rounds in total, and we're going to do it on the mock draft machine on the Draft Network, which I think is probably the best mock draft simulator out there. They allow you to make trades if you get their premium service. I will not be doing trades in this video just to try to keep the complications to a minimum. But suffice to say, I think there will be some teams that do trades, but will not be covered in this mock. So let's go ahead, select every team so we can have control of every team in the NFL. And I'll just talk my way through who I think these teams are going to pick and maybe briefly discuss why. So every team is selected. Now we're going to do a 4-round mock draft. We're going to go ahead and just stick with the predictive board, not that it really matters. We're going to go slow, and then we're going to have every pick be manual, so it really should just go at our own pace. And yeah, again, I don't have a stake in 31 of the 32 teams that will be making draft picks later this month, but it's still fun to try to predict what they might do, and it might help teach us something about what kind of players the Seahawks might get. So whether you're an NFL fan or a Seahawks fan or a fan of any other team, maybe we can learn something today. So with that, let's go ahead and start the draft. All right. So we have the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we already know what this pick is going to be. I don't feel any need to talk about it. We all know they're getting Trevor Lawrence. So let's just punch that in now. The Jets. The Jets can go a few different directions here, including trading out and trying to get extra picks, but I am going to go ahead and hold to my belief that they are going to go for quarterback Zach Wilson. I don't believe the new regime is going to want to stick with Darnold, and I think they're going to want to hitch their wagon to the best QB they can get, and that would be Zach Wilson. All right. Now the draft gets a little more interesting when we get to the 49ers pick at number 3. I believe that they traded up to get a quarterback for sure. I think everybody knows that. The question is which one? And I am going to go ahead and play it safe for now and say I think they will get Justin Fields. I will say Mac Jones is still on the table according to what I'm hearing, and so is Trey Lance. But I'm going to go ahead and say they would not have traded up to number 3 if not to get one of the top 3. And Justin Fields is clearly in that top 3, regardless of what TDN's predictive board may say. So that's going to be Justin Fields. Now we get to the really kind of interesting stuff with the Atlanta Falcons. So the Falcons clearly need defense. And if they need defense, I think they will probably trade down. And real quick, I do want to say, even though I'm not going to do that in this mock for multiple reasons, I could see them trading down with the Broncos if I had to take a guess. Trade this pick with the Broncos, pick up a first rounder next year or a second rounder this year, or maybe a little extra on top of it. Go get one of the top cornerbacks and let Denver get Trey Lance. But if they don't trade, my understanding is the player they really like is Kyle Pitts out of Florida. I don't know if it's a good idea for them to be taking another offensive player. It's not really what they need, but as of right now, if they don't trade, I think Kyle Pitts would probably be the guy. So now we have the Cincinnati Bengals. They have an easy slam dunk pick of Penei Sewell. They should feel very fortunate that he's there for them to pick, and I think that's pretty simple and straightforward. All right, now we get to the Miami Dolphins, and they need wide receiver help for Tua, and they have very interesting options here. They can either get Jamar Chase, who I think is the best receiver in this draft, or they can get one of the 2 Alabama guys to reunite with Tua Tagovailoa. So that's an interesting question. I think Jamar Chase is the best player at receiver in this draft. So I'm going to say they pick him. It would not shock me if they went for one of the Bama receivers because of the Tua connection. Okay, that brings us to the Detroit Lions. They also have a need at wide receiver because they lost Kenny Golladay to the Giants. So it becomes a question of Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith. I'm going to go with Jalen Waddle at number 7. Now we are at the Carolina Panthers. They need a quarterback because Teddy Bridgewater is clearly not the answer. He might be able to start and gut out another year, but he's not the answer. So it's Mac Jones or Trey Lance, and I think the guy is going to be Trey Lance. I have a feeling about Trey Lance here, so he's the guy. All right, Denver Broncos time. They need a quarterback as well, which is why I think they might trade up to secure one of the top ones. I don't know how much Mac Jones hurt himself with his pro day. I know it wasn't very good. If the Broncos are high on Mac Jones, it would not surprise me if the Broncos took him. However, I am going to go ahead and say that Mac Jones falls past the Broncos. And I'm going to give the Broncos Rashawn Slater because they have a need at tackle because Garrett Bowles is Garrett Bowles. And I mean, neither of their tackles are very good. And it's not the worst idea in the world to hope that Drew Lock finds some level of success in, what is this, his third year? So, yeah, I'm going to say Rashawn Slater to the Broncos, and that gets us to the Dallas Cowboys. They have their pick of several different cornerbacks who are very, very good, and I feel like they're going to go in that direction. So you have Patrick Surtain and you have J.C. Horn. I think it's going to be one of those two guys. Some people say that, where is he? Where is he? Caleb Farley, but there are some question marks about his draft value right now. So I'm going to say Patrick Surtain or J.C. Horn. I'm going to go with Patrick Surtain. I think he's going to be number 10 overall there. And that gets us to the New York Giants pick. And this is kind of an interesting one. I think they might end up with Micah Parsons, the linebacker out of Penn State, if I had to make a guess right now. I think that would make a lot of sense. They don't need more offensive linemen. They don't need more receivers. They don't need a quarterback. I think they need a linebacker to add to their already very impressive defense, and Micah Parsons is the best available, so he's going to go. And that gets us to the Philly Eagles. And despite trading down to number 12, they will still have a chance at a top receiver in the form of Devontae Smith, and I'm going to say that's who they end up getting. So Devontae Smith goes to the Eagles, and that gets us to the Los Angeles Chargers. And I think that Christian Darrisaw is a pretty slam dunk pick here for them. Somebody to protect Justin Herbert, somebody to build their offense around. And yeah, I think this is a pretty slam dunk pick for them if he falls this far. Okay, Minnesota Vikings at number 14 overall, and they could go a few different directions here, but I think it makes a lot of sense for them to ultimately just go for one of the best valued players left, Elijah Vera Tucker, inside an interior offensive lineman. They have a big need at interior offensive line. He's going to be a great guard in the NFL, and I'm going to say they go ahead and get him. And that gets to the Patriots, and I had Mac Jones going to the Patriots here. I had Mac Jones as the guy, and it doesn't look like that's going to really work out now because he did not have a good pro day. There was that big meme about, oh, look at Bill Belichick just watching him in abject disappointment. So maybe Mac Jones falls beyond the Patriots after all. As for who they might actually take, they signed so many players in free agency, it's kind of hard to know where their needs are, but I'm going to go with J.C. Horn from South Carolina. I like J.C. Horn. I think he's going to be a good pro, and I think he's going to be the pick there. All right, now we start getting to the tougher part of the draft. This is where it's hard for me to really figure out who's going to go where, but we have the Arizona Cardinals, and they're probably very disappointed they couldn't get J.C. Horn because they probably would have gotten him if he was there, but they missed by one pick. Now they do have a need at running back. I don't know if Arizona is necessarily going to prioritize getting a running back to the degree that they take one in the first round, but they do have the best running back in the draft on the table for them at Najee Harris. So I'm going to say they get Najee Harris. I'm not a big fan of taking running backs in the first round. It would not surprise me if Arizona feels like they don't need to either, but they did lose Kenyon Drake, so they do need help there. So Najee Harris. That gets us to the Las Vegas Raiders, who have remade their offensive line. They decided to get a lot cheaper at the offensive line spots, so I'm going to say they need to bring in some young, cheap talent, and that is going to be Tevin Jenkins out of Oklahoma State. All right, so that loops us back, or well, not loops us back, but it takes us back to the Miami Dolphins, who already picked up a receiver at number, I guess 6. So now the Dolphins need their next guy, and I think they can get the hometown guy here, Jalen Phillips, an edge player from the University of Miami, the Hurricanes. He fits a need, and he should make their defense a lot better. So I'm going to say they get Jalen Phillips from the Hurricanes. All right, now we've got a football team on the ledger here. And this is a place that Mac Jones could go. Mac Jones's little fall here may very well stop. Washington does need a new QB of the future because they've already given up on Haskins. I know some people are a little excited about some guys they have already on the roster, but I think that if Mac Jones falls this far, Washington may have to take a bite at that. So I would not be surprised if they went for a linebacker. I wouldn't be surprised if they went for a wide receiver or an offensive lineman. But with the draft in this state, I'm going to say they get Mac Jones at number 19. And that gets us to the Chicago Bears, who probably would take Mac Jones if he falls past Washington. But it being the case that he did not, their choices are a little But I think they're probably going, or if they're not going to lose I'm sorry, not Alshon Jeffrey, Allen Robinson now, they're going to lose him later. So I'm going to give them Rashad Bateman from Minnesota, another receiver. And they do have Andy Dalton, and he's okay, so they may as well give him some extra weapons to work with. He did have some of the best weapons to work with in Dallas, so you want to try to get back to that kind of thing. So let's give them Rashad Bateman from Minnesota. Gets us to the Colts, and this one is kind of tough for me to figure out exactly what they might do, but I'm going to say that Caleb Farley, who TDN does not like very much, goes here. I think that Caleb Farley's a little free fall through the draft is probably going to stop here. He might go higher than this. He might be valued higher than a guy like J.C. Horn, but it seems like there's something happening with his draft stock. It's moving in the wrong direction. But I'm going to give the Colts Caleb Farley, or give Caleb Farley to the Colts, whichever way you want to put it. And that gets us to the Tennessee Titans. And I know they lost Corey Davis, but there are no real good receivers here. I definitely would have given them one if he was there. So I'm going to go with Greg Newsome II. They're going to get another cornerback as well. They have a clear need there. So I'm going to give them him. And now we are back on the Jets with the pick they got in the Jamal Adams trade. And I think they are probably going to get an edge defender, somebody that Robert Saleh likes. I don't know exactly which one, though. There are 3 pretty viable ones here. Azeez Ojulari, Kwity Paye, and Jason Owe. So flip a coin, or, well, flip a 3-sided coin in your head, I guess. Let's go with Azeez Ojulari. Could be easily any of the other 2. And that gets us to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, let's see here, they could use some help at offensive line. They do need to think about the future quarterback. They did, I think, lose James Conner, so it might be a good idea for them to finally take a Travis Etienne off the board from Clemson. He could be the pick, and I think I'm going to go ahead and go with that for the time being, Travis Etienne. So he's off the board, and that gets us to Jacksonville, who is picking again after picking Trevor Lawrence in with the first overall pick. So what are they going to do now that they have Trevor Lawrence? They could give him some support on offense, of course, but that Jacksonville offense is pretty dang set, it seems to me, outside of maybe the offensive line. They have great receivers. They have good running backs. I kind of like what they're doing in Jacksonville in terms of setting up weapons for Lawrence. So with that in mind, let's take a look here. Let's scroll through. Could they take Samuel Cosby? Because Cosme is a player that I thought was going to be a late second round pick, but he's starting to move up a little bit. He's starting to move up the board a little bit, and he may be a low first or high second round pick after all. So keep an eye on that. I'm not going to say he's going to go that high quite yet. So instead, I am going to go with, I think that PF TDN kind of undervalues a couple of these tackles. So I'm going to give them Liam Eichenberg. I think he's probably going to go in the late first round, so I'm going to give him to the Jaguars. Now we have the Cleveland Browns. And what could they do with their pick? Let's give them one of the edge defenders to go along with Myles Garrett because I think they lost, Olivier Vernon. And we've got Kwity Paye. We've got Jason Owe. Which one? Let's go with Kwity Paye, I guess, although he is a Michigan player, so you know that he's not going to be the most popular guy in Ohio at first. And that gets us to the Baltimore Ravens. And let's go ahead and give them Jason Owe. But again, on these edge players, I haven't studied the edge players in this draft that much because I just don't see any need to do it as a Seahawks fan because we don't have a need at that position. But I'm going to give the Ravens Jason Owe, and that's going to clear the table for the Saints to pick the hometown guy, Terrence Marshall Jr., wide receiver, because they need to replace some of their missing receiver talent. The only guy they really have right now is Michael Thomas, and that's going to be the pick there. So now the Packers, I'm going to say, get a receiver as well because they have a clear need there. I'm going to say they get Kadarius Toney from Florida. He becomes the 29th overall pick. Now we're on the Buffalo Bills, and this is an interesting selection that they need to make here. They have a need at cornerback, so maybe Eric Stokes goes a lot higher than some people are giving him credit for. They missed out on some good edge players and some good receivers, so some of their needs aren't necessarily completely lining up with the board. So that being said, could they take Javonte Williams? I'm going to say no. Even though they have a little bit of a need at running back, I'm going to say they're smarter than using a first-round pick on a running back when their offense is what it is. So I'm going to give them Christian Barmore from Alabama, actually. I think this is a pretty good fit. I think he fills a need because they lost Quentin Jefferson, and I think he's going to be a good pro. Okay, Kansas City Chiefs up next. They need help on the offensive line. Mostly they need another tackle, so Samuel Cosby is a very likely candidate here. But I'm going to say they beef up their defense that got exposed a little bit in the Super Bowl. They have the opportunity to get a very good one here, somebody who's fallen down this board a little bit, the Notre Dame Jeremiah Owusu. And I'm going to go ahead and send him to Kansas City. And finally, we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What might they do with their first-round pick, the final pick of the first round? Well, they are getting all their starters back from last year, so they don't have a lot of obvious needs. But scrolling through this list and thinking about what they have and what they might need, I am going to go ahead and go with Levi Onwuzurike from Washington. So we do get a Husky player coming off the board in the first round, and he's going to go to the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right, so that's going to do it for my first round. Let me know what you guys think. Did I do your team well? Did I not do your team well? Was I way off? Was I spot on? How do you feel about this first round of the NFL draft? Let me know in the comments. I'm going to get out of here. Peace out, Go Hawks. Next week, we continue on with this mock, but I'm going to call it good here. Thank you for watching. Let's see how close I can get.